Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to embark into a new adventure for the palate. You know sweet, you know sour, you know bitter, you know salty. But what if there was another? A type of taste once undefined in cuisine. One of the interactions of amino acids and nucleotides with taste receptors in the tongue or stomach, I give you Umami! To explore this peculiar flavor, one recent game comes to mind that explores its untapped potential, and it was made in the Pacific Northwest. Lockstin! Well, when the dude features Bugsnax and the mosquito-like grape-skeeto found in the boiling bay at night, and green grape-skeeto at the simmering springs at night, which goes from raisin to a bunch of grapes with a slurp of snack water, which is implied to be alcoholic, by the way. Fermented juice blood. Bugsnax was dark. Anyway, when he decided to focus on what was essentially a body horror game over something that could be equally analyzed in his style that was made in his region, I felt he was ultimately limiting himself. Well, I guess it's my job. Another Crab's Treasure, a game made by Aggro Crab, is a story of loss and reinvention. You play Kril, a hermit crab who has to learn the hard way
outstanding taxes that
taxation is theft. Then is armed with a mere fork to take on the creatures of the ocean floor.
Rusty fork.
Soon he finds he can wear discarded objects instead.
Can!
Learning from the great moon snail,
from here on out, he must awaken the currents inside of him.
That their useful attributes are activated with Umami!
Shell shock. Transmute your umami into a bolt of lightning, electrifying your shell. What do I do now? Oh. That can has to be a soup can if it deals umami. New shell. Oh, I have blue bubbles! The power of the soda can. The fizzy bubbles! Oh my god, that's so true!
Umami is defined as the taste of salts, combining glutamate or guanylate with the likes of sodium ions, such as monosodium glutamate, or MSG, or potassium ions. Essentially, it's the flavor of savory. Syrup with umami. It was discovered by Dr. Kikune Ikeda in 1908, based on psychophysical, electrophysiological, and biochemical studies. Umami can be translated as pleasant savory taste. This neologism, or newly coined expression or word, was coined by the Japanese chemist from a nominalization of umai, meaning delicious. It has also been dubbed the flavor enhancer or Python ingredient of crunchy
On the
frog.
bottom of the box after monosodium glutamate.
Has 3 umami receptors, T1R1 and T1R3, as well as mGlu-R4 and mGlu-R1, were identified on the tongue and stomach. There is in fact a synergism between glutamate and the 5 nucleotides. This enhancement of food was reinterpreted as the catalyst to awaken abilities within Kril, reacting to the materials now wrapped around his tail. A very delicious magic system. As for how it pertains to grapes, it's very simple, as all wines naturally have glutamic acid, which make umami flavors. It is a taste that can be present in wine due to the amino acid glutamic acid, or GLU. Glutamic acid is found in the skins of the little wine grapes and can develop during fermentation and aging. There are some winemaking techniques, like fermenting on yeast leaves, or the sediment of wine in the barrel, and malolactic fermentation. Malolactic means of or denoting bacterial fermentation, which converts malic acid to lactic acid, especially as a secondary process to reduce the acidity of some wines. These techniques can increase the amount of glue in wine. Sparkling wines especially may have the strongest umami taste because the fermentation process and added yeasts produce even more glue. The taste of wine in general is determined by the balance of the major anions, malate and tartrate, and presence or absence of major cations, mainly potassium. Harvest timing and management also affects wine pH. Did you know that the pH could increase by as much as 0.2 units between harvest and delivery? Higher pH values can alter the color of anthocyanin solutions, which is responsible for a red wine's color, by changing the structure of the anthocyanin molecule. A high pH must results in wines that have a flat taste and red wines with a brownish color. Generally, a pH above 3.6 is undesirable, as it can have a negative effect on a range of wine quality characteristics. High nitrogen increases the pH of the must in wine, increasing the malate concentration in grape juice. Too much available nitrogen, on the other hand, can create strong canopy growth, increasing shading and wine pH. Whereas there is a strong relationship between potassium and grape and wine pH. Too much potassium results in a high wine pH and a poorer quality wine. And again, wine is said to have low alcohol, specifically ethanol. Wine is filled with all sorts of stuff, like gum arabic, activated carbon, ammonium phosphate, aluminosilicates, ascorbic acid, lactic acid, isinglass, citric acid, copper sulfate, polyoxyethylene 40, dimethyl dicarbonate, carbohydrates, tartaric acid, oak chips, tannins, and mega purple. That sounds like a food coloring.
Yes.
But somehow, those wine companies don't have to get the FDA breathing on their shoulders. Figures. Which means, just because a bottle of wine touts being made with organic grapes, doesn't mean it's a natural or organic produced wine. Talk about playing Russian roulette. Lucky for me, I don't drink the stuff! And that's due to the temperance movement. It was a social movement in history created by first the Native Americans in 1737, then the Protestant Church back in the 1830s and 40s. You would know this particular event as what led to Prohibition. You see, this moment in history was a bit of a double-edged sword. It brought awareness to overindulgence of alcoholic beverages, which led to vows of drinking abstinence. It gave women a vehicle to fight for what's right before their big one in 1920, specifically distraught wives and mothers whose lives had been ruined by the excesses of the saloon, and birthed healthier alternatives. However, on the other hand, it made the alcohol industry go underground. Farmers took a hit because they grew what became the alcohol, and Benjamin Rush, the essential leader of the movement, had a list of liquids that people could drink instead, which made things less pleasant. On that list, they had water, coffee, molasses and water, sugar maple juice, and finally, vinegar and water. Ugh! Vinegar is any alcohol fermented further with a mass called a mother, and becomes a sour-tasting liquid containing acetic acid. That don't sound tasty to me at all! I'll just use that for cleaning and making pickles. Luckily, the man included cider and wine in his list, as they contained the least amount of alcohol, lessening the chance of strong drunkenness. Soon, the movement grew, and there was a war against any alcohol consumed, even Susan B. Anthony got in the fight, evolving into teetotal organizations. However, wine, for many years, was used as a religious symbol for Jesus' blood, but they didn't want to be hypocrites and be bad example for everyone else. Nope! So one set of believers used water, and others used unfermented grape juice with raisins, water, and egg whites. A drink Garfield would protest drinking, and he consumes everything. This was because grapes weren't always in season, but you couldn't observe the sacred meal without it. That's when our old friend, Louis Pasteur, had a hand in the story. The Vinland
How ironic.
Methodist Episcopal Church in Vinland, New Jersey, wanted to practice what they preached and demonstrated their teetotalism in the 1860s. And their communion, Stuart Thomas, who happened to be a dentist, pasteurized that grape juice in 1869. Necessity is the mother of invention, after all, and this product was not meant for profit initially. Yummy! Holiest of elixirs. You know this guy as the one who created the Welch's brand, Dr. Welch's unfermented wine. You also know them for their jams or jellies. You gotta love grapes. Now it's time to take a look inside this often spirited bunch.